Hi everybody, Mr. Francy here, and welcome back to another favourites and non-favourites video for the first half of 2024. In my last video, I talked about the worst books that I read in the first half of 2024, so it stands to reason that it is now time to discuss the best, the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop, the best books that I read in the first half of 2024. Now, in the past, I have done a ranking system going from like 10th to first place. I'm not doing that this time. All of these books received 5 stars, and quite frankly, I didn't want to choose between them and make a rankings list. So I've got 10 books that I'm going to discuss with all of you, and I'm just going to say that they're all coming in equal first, and we're going to jump right on in. Here are the 10 best books that I read in the first half of 2024. First up, Heartless Sky by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. This is book number 7 in the Zodiac Academy series. It is an adult fantasy, and as with every book on this list, I gave this book 5 stars. So, yeah, the premise of this book is the winds of fate are shifting, and it finally seems like they've been twisted in our favour. On the run and cast out from society, we've been forced to hide from the madman who stole our throne. But as more secrets come to light, and my sister and I work harder than ever before to reach our potential and claim our birthright, the end is finally drawing closer. There is no turning from this path now. The curse chases on our heels as time rushes by, and the blood-drenched destiny of the man I love looms ever closer, just like the monster who stole our throne. So to my thoughts, it was another amazing Zodiac Academy book with a cliffhanger to stop hearts. I love this series, and there are cliffhangers in every single book, but the one in this one, this is the most recent book that I've read in the series. This one, oh my goodness, I need to know how the next one is going to go after the cliffhanger we got in this one. And I'm not reading a Zodiac Academy in July, so best believe when I finally get to the next one in August, I mean, I'm already eagerly anticipating seeing how they're going to deal with this cliffhanger. But I love that we got to explore a little more between Seth and Caleb. My goodness, do I love their relationship in this story. And Xavier, interesting character development for Xavier from when we first meet Xavier in the beginning of the series to where he is now, as well as not only his growth, but his bond that he has with Tyler. But the ending, seriously, was something, and I mean, I love the series as a whole anyway, but oh my goodness, this book, I need to read the next one, and I need it now, but I also need to wait. So, when you're riding that sort of a high, then you know it's one of the best books you've read. So thank you, Caroline Peckham and Susan Valenti, for not only an amazing series, but an incredible book within an already, by my opinion, amazing series. The next book I'm going to talk about is this book, 5 Go Adventuring Again. This is book number 2 in the Famous 5 series by Enid Blyton. It is a middle grade classic book, and of course, again, I gave this book 5 stars. So, Famous 5, we are dealing with 4 children and a dog. The children are George, and whose birth name is Georgina, but she's a tomboy and prefers to be called George. George has 3 cousins, Julian, Dick, and Anne, and together with George's dog Timmy, they make the Famous 5, and in every single book they go off on some adventure or other. I've been likening this series to a middle grade type of cozy mystery, and yeah, really enjoying my time with the series as a whole. I had come into reading this series having read the minority of these books, probably about 4 or 5 in total, and this one is one that I had read prior to this read of the series. So technically, reading Five Go Adventuring again was a reread for me, but in saying that, it still holds up to this day. I loved reading this book as a child, and I still love it as an adult, which speaks volumes. So the premise of this one is there's a thief at Kieran Cottage. The famous five think they know who it is, but they need to prove it. Where can they find evidence? The discovery of an old map and very unusual hiding place is all they need to get to the bottom of this mystery and uncover the true culprit. So to my thoughts, as I said, I love finding hidden rooms or hidden doorways or whatever. So having this whole secret way to find made this book incredibly entertaining for me. So yeah, they find this piece of linen that suggests that there is a secret way somewhere, and they're trying to discover where that secret way is. If I'm going to have a book that's about discovering a secret way, I mean, it's going to excite me no matter what, and it definitely did in this one. I loved George in this one. She proves that going against the grain can very well be for the best. Timmy was the hero once again. It was pure entertainment from start to end. The next book I'm going to discuss is this book, Starboard Secrets, which is book number 1 in the Millie Cruise Ship Mystery Series by Hope Callahan. It is an adult cozy mystery, and of course, I gave this book 5 stars. So the premise of this one, which is the very first book to open up the series, is Millie Sanders' happily ever after is suddenly destroyed when her husband of 35 years comes home one day and informs her that he is leaving her for another woman. To make matters worse, the other woman happens to be her friend and hairdresser, Delilah Osborne. After months of mourning and moping around the house, she stumbles upon a help wanted ad in the newspaper for the perfect job as an assistant cruise ship director. Determined to start a new life and new career, Millie boards the ship ready for a new adventure. She isn't on board the massive floating city, her new home, more than 10 minutes when a dead body is discovered near the atrium bar. And so to my thoughts, I had high expectations going into this book, having never read a cruise ship cozy mystery series before, nor any of Hope Callahan's works, and it was better than I thought it would be with those high expectations. What's not to love? Millie is fantastic as an elderly sleuth and assistant cruise director. The ship itself has multiple entertaining aspects, and I thoroughly enjoyed seeing every nook and cranny. I love the friends Millie makes also. The mystery was intriguing too. Truly a different type of cozy mystery series for me, but one that I am so happy I am making my way through at the moment. I highly recommend this. If you love your cozies and haven't read a cruise ship cozy mystery series before, give this a go. It's different, but it is so much fun. Alright, so the next one I'm going to talk to you about is this book, which is How to Lure a Hunter, which is book number 3 in the VRC Vampire-Related Crimes series by Alice Winters. I have now finished this series. This is a 5-book series, and this is book number 3 that we're talking about, which lands smack bang in the middle. But there's a reason why I chose to discuss this one. Now, the basic backstory to this series as a whole is that we open up with book 1 following a guy whose name is Finn. Finn was a part of the standard crimes unit filled with humans that solve human crime mysteries. There is also the VRC, the Vampire-Related Crimes Unit, filled with vampires that solve, you guessed it, vampire-related crime mysteries. Finn decides he wants to join the Vampire-Related Crimes Unit, and in book 1, he is assigned the partner of Marcus. Flynn and Marcus have a tough business relationship to begin with that eventually blossoms into a beautiful relationship. And then every subsequent book in the series, we follow someone else from the department and a love interest that they have as well. So it's a paranormal, male mystery spice level of about 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, but just really, really, really fun. And so, yeah, that's your basic setup. Now, the premise of this particular one is where Marcus Church brings his brother Claude in to help solve an unusual murder. Alexei is positive he did it just to disrupt his monotonous life. None of his co-workers in the vampire-related crimes unit seems to understand that he wants to keep a wall between himself and everyone else, especially Claude, who does everything he can to break through it with an annoying smile. After more vampires begin to die, Claude pinpoints the actions of the killers to a group of vampire hunters, leading everyone in a race to stop them. When Alexei discovers that he has a target on his back, he is surprised that Claude insists on staying by his side, even when things go from bad to worse. Alexei is determined to keep Claude out. He's lost enough people in his life, but Alexei can't stop feeling something every time Claude breaks through. So to my thoughts, I loved this book so much. I love the series as a whole. I love the VRC unit so much, and I'm invested in all the characters. Normally, I don't like when series change perspectives in different books, but in this case, this is exactly what Alice Winters needed to do. It was so good to get to know Alexei better, but also to get to know his backstory, which becomes integral to the case, which was even better. An added bonus was Alexei as a person and the hilarity of his opinions. He is so frank and direct about his opinions that they catch you off guard and make you laugh out loud. Truly a joy to read. I absolutely loved the series, loved book 3, highly recommend the series. The next book that I'm going to talk to you about is this book, Love and Olives, which is the final book, book 3 in the Love and Gelato series by Jenna Evans Welch. This is a young adult romance contemporary. It's both. There's the romance aspect, but also the contemporary aspect in all of these books, including this one. And of course, as with the others, I gave this one 5 stars. So the premise of this particular book, so quickly an overview of the series. It's more like 3 books that are standalone set in the same type of universe. Every book in this trilogy revolves around a different main character who ends up going overseas for one reason or another and discovers certain things along the way. So with this one, the premise is when Liv arrives in gorgeous Santorini, things are just as awkward as she imagined. There are so many questions, so many emotions that flood to the surface after seeing her father for the first time in years. Liv doesn't want to get sucked back into her father's world. She also definitely doesn't want Theo, her father's charismatic so-called protege, to witness her struggle. Even so, she can't help but be charmed by everything Santorini has to offer. The beautiful sunsets, the turquoise water, the sun-drenched villages, and the delicious cuisine. But not everything on the Greek island is as perfect as it seems, because as Liv slowly begins to discover, her father may not have invited her to Greece for Atlantis, but for something much more important. So to my thoughts, this book opened up really well and then started to dip for me, and I felt like it dragged on a little too long. I seriously thought I was going to give this book 2 or 3 stars for a decent chunk of it, but then something happened in the last quarter that made me realize just how invested I have become in the characters and the plot itself. Jenna Evans Welch has undeniably written 3 amazing stories in the trilogy, and I felt quite honored to have read all of them now. A particular shout out to her portrayal of Greece and theories on the lost city of Atlantis. Yeah, so this is a great example of a book where, as I said, I got to a certain point thinking I was going to give it 2 or 3 stars, and then something blew my mind within the book to the point that I could only give it 5 stars. The 2 or 3 stars was no longer an option for me. And in this particular case, it was because something happened that obviously I won't reveal because it's a spoiler, but something happened that made me realize just how invested in these characters I was. I was so emotional at the end of this book as I was connected to the characters of every book in this particular series. So I recommend the series as a whole. This book was fantastic. If you like the idea of traveling, really immersing yourself in the culture of a certain nation or country or something like that, I highly, highly recommend this series. But I loved Love and Olives. So the next book we're going to talk about is this book, Death of an Ice Cream Scooper, which is book number 15 in the Hayley Powell Food and Cocktail Mystery Series by Lee and Hollis. This is an adult cozy mystery series that I have fallen in love with. This book is part of a series that I've fallen in love with, where we follow our protagonist Hayley Powell, who is a food and cocktails columnist, writing columns for the local newspaper where she lives, and those columns, not only does she write them, but we actually get to read them because the columns are pieced and parceled throughout the course of the book. So not only are we following, one, a fantastic protagonist, which Hayley Powell is, two, does she have amazing friends, three, there is LGBTIQ plus rep in the book because her brother is gay and married, which is wonderful as well, four, we have the cozy side, which is of Hayley working at the newspaper and writing columns and stuff. Five, the majority of the mysteries are absolutely fantastic. And six, we get to actually see these columns pieced and parceled throughout each book. I love this series. The next book in this series is not coming out for quite some time, late September, early October, somewhere around there. I cannot wait to read the next one, but I loved Death of an Ice Cream Scooper. So very quick premise on this one. Food and cocktails columnist Hayley Powell is back on the case in Bar Harbor, Maine, when her friend and owner of a gourmet ice cream shop finds that her husband may be a cheater and a killer. So to my thoughts, as always with the series, I love this book. I love Hayley as a sleuth and as a person in general. I enjoyed the mystery a lot. I love Hayley's friends Mona and Liddy, and I really enjoyed that her son Dustin was in this one. Fantastic book, as every one of the books in the series are. I'm just sad I only have one book left before I'm completely up to date. There you go. And then I read that one and it didn't get 5 stars, but still, this one definitely did. I highly recommend the Hayley Powell Food and Cocktail Mystery Series. Alright, 3 books left, so let's keep going. We're doing well for time too. The next book that we're going to talk about is this book, Midnight Sun, which is the 5th published book in the Twilight Saga series by Stephanie Meyer. It is marketed as a YA, well, it's really tough to say. I'd probably market it as a YA paranormal because it involves vampires, and I gave the book 5 stars. Yeah, so just quickly to confirm what I was saying earlier, this is the 5th published book in the series. However, it is set as a bit of everything, really. The book kind of starts as like a prequel to the series, and by the time it ends, we've kind of gotten through the series. So yeah, it's great. The difference is in the first 4 books that were published, we mainly follow the perspective of Bella Swan. Bella Swan's love interest is a vampire by the name of Edward Cullen. In Midnight Sun, we follow the perspective of Edward Cullen. So we start off with Edward Cullen before he's met Bella, then we see Edward meeting Bella and going through everything that he and Bella go through, but we witness it from his perspective. And it just was absolutely fantastic. So, to my thoughts on this one, and I really have a lot to say on this, but let's just say that, yeah. When I found out that Midnight Sun was being released, I ummed and ahed. Well, no, wait, that's not true. I was a stick in the mud saying I'd never read Midnight Sun because it's literally just a retelling from Edward's perspective, and I'd rather get book 5 in the series. I want more of the series, not the same from a different point of view. But over time, the yearning appeared and then grew and grew and grew, and finally, as I said, I felt the hype train pull out of the station and knew it would be the right time for me to read the book, and I have to say it was fantastic. The book, while marketed as a YA, has a definite adult feeling to it, but that makes sense to me given exactly how old Edward actually is. He's an old soul that has had many, many, many life experiences, so it makes sense that we're dealing with an adult mind here as opposed to teenagers. That aside, it was fantastic peeking behind the curtain when in Twilight, Bella goes home and we follow her to I guess, dream about Edward. In Midnight Sun, we follow Edward and get to experience some amazing conversations with Carlisle, Esme, Alice, Rosalie, and even Emmett. This, for any true Twilight Saga book fan, is an absolute treat to experience because it fills in all of the small and big gaps we had in Twilight. I could go on and on, but I don't want to make this a thesis. I'll just add one more thing. Apparently, Stephanie Meyer doesn't want to do any more retellings from Edward's perspective, which is a shame, but I absolutely loved it. All in all, a treat and triumph, a love letter to all Twilight Saga book fans, and I gave it 5 stars. If you at any point or even now had the opinion that I have, or had the opinion that I had, which was, why would I want to read this? It's the same thing. It's just from Edward's perspective. Trust me, if you loved the Twilight Saga series, you need to read this book. This is not a... well, no offense to the Hunger Games, but this is not a Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes situation where you don't have to read that book. You really should read Midnight Sun. And I don't hype up books unless I genuinely think they deserve the hype. If you are a die-hard Twilight book series fan, you have to read Midnight Sun. It fills in so many gaps. It gives you so much more on Edward and the Cullens and things like that. It is so good. It is, oh my gosh, it is a book for the soul of Twilight book fans. All right, let's move on, because I've still got 3 books left. The next book that I'm going to discuss with you is this book, Practice Makes Perfect, which is the 3rd book in the Housemate series by Jay Northcote. So the basic setup for this series is that we are following this group of guys who are at university in England. They are living on campus as housemates, and they all go through their own little stories. So in every book, we follow a different housemate, if that makes sense. All of them are dual perspective. They all involve a romance in one way, shape, or form. They all involve spicy scenes that are like 10 out of 10 spice, so do be warned about that. But all in all, I absolutely love the series. The reason why this particular book got 5 stars from me is because of the plot and character development. In book 1, I felt like Jay Northcote was just giving a spicy book, and that was it. But as time has gone on, plot and character development has expanded in the subsequent books. And I'm really looking forward to picking up book number 4, which I am picking up in July, which is Watching and Waiting to see. I'm going to be watching because I am waiting to see, see what I did there, the plot and character development of that book, because it's just fantastic. So I do highly recommend the series if you're happy to read a male spicy series that is like 10 out of 10 spice. But also, if you allow yourself to just get lost in the spice of book 1, because from book 2 onwards, there is a lot of character development and plot development, which gives each book and the series overall more heart and more soul, if that makes sense, as opposed to just being a spicy book or a spicy series. But anyway, absolutely loved this series, loved this book. It was so fantastic. I really enjoyed following the main guy, Dev. Yeah. So Dev ended up, he was living in other accommodation on the university campus in the dorms there, and he was having an absolutely horrible time. He's an introverted, self-proclaimed geek. He ends up moving in with the housemates who treat him so much better because he was bullied a lot at his last place. And yeah, he just really grows and comes into himself throughout the course of this book, which was just absolutely wonderful. So highly recommend the series, highly recommend the book. And it is an adult LGBTIQ+, by the way. All right, let's move on. Got 2 more left. So the next book that I'm going to talk to you about is this book, A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This book is just... oh my goodness, if I was going to do a ranking, this book would be right near the top. It would make the top 2, top 3 at absolute worst, because it not only did it leave an impression on me, but it left a long-lasting impression. Even now, looking at the cover of this book, I am reminded of my experience that I went through with this book. I not only read the book, I found out that it was adapted into a movie. I watched the movie. I loved both. I loved the book itself. I loved the movie. I loved the story. I loved the characters. I loved the message that it's trying to convey. I highly, highly, highly recommend this book if you want something that will stay with you. Now, some people are saying it's YA, some are saying it's middle grade. I would probably say it's middle grade horror. But yeah, middle grade horror fantasy, I guess. So don't go in thinking it is horror, because it's not. Think of it more as a middle grade fantasy with some darker tones to it, I guess. But, yeah, I'll tell you the premise anyway. So the premise of this one is, at 7 minutes past midnight, 13-year-old Connor wakes up to find a monster outside his bedroom window, but it isn't the monster Connor's been expecting. He's been expecting the one from his nightmare, the nightmare he's had nearly every night since his mother started her treatments. The monster in his backyard is different. It's ancient and wild, and it wants something from Connor. Something terrible and dangerous. It wants the truth. This is a heavy emotional read despite being a middle grade, so do be warned of that. But if you want a book that's going to leave a lasting impression, trust me when I say, give this book a go. Alright, and the final book we're going to talk about is this one, Small Town Pride by Phil Stamper. My goodness, do I love Phil Stamper. I had a little time where I wasn't reading Phil Stamper books, but I am way back on the Phil Stamper train and cannot wait to consume even more from him. I read 2 Phil Stamper books so far this year, another one being Eli Over Easy, but I want to focus on Small Town Pride out of the 2, but I did like Eli Over Easy. The basic premise of this one is when Jake's dad hangs a comically large pride flag in their front yard in an overblown show of love, the mayor begins to receive complaints. A few people are even concerned the flag will lead to something truly outlandish, a pride parade. Oh my gosh, shock horror, right? Except Jake doesn't think that's a ridiculous idea. Why can't they hold a pride festival in Barton Springs? The problem is Jake knows he'll have to get approval from the town council and the mayor won't be on his side. And as Jake and his friends try to find a way to bring pride to Barton Springs, it seems suspicious that the mayor's son Brett suddenly wants to spend time with Jake. But someone that cute couldn't possibly be in league with his Meryl mother, could he? Oh my gosh, vintage Phil Stamper. To my thoughts, having read The Gravity of Us and As Far As You'll Take Me, both by Phil Stamper, I was already a Phil Stamper stan, but this book was categorized as middle grade, and so I went in cautiously as I'd only ever read YAs from him. I needn't have been worried though. Stamper shines as he always does. Jake is a character with such a cute, sweet, upbeat personality that it's hard not to love him. His best friend is so supportive of him, and the moments between Jake and the mayor's son are so adorable. Not as hard-hitting as Phil Stamper's YA works, but still 100% worthy of 5 stars. And I highly recommend Phil Stamper. If you want more hard-hitting male contemporary, then I would recommend his YA stuff. But for just really adorable male contemporaries, then I would recommend his middle grade stuff. He is a wonderful author, and I will be reading the Golden Boys duology that Phil Stamper wrote a little later on in the year. But there you go. Those are my 10 best books that I read in the first half of 2024. Just so you know, I had way more than 10 books that received 5 stars in the first half of 2024. And the good news is that the majority of the books that I read in 2024 did receive 5 stars. So it has been a fantastic first half of the year, and it was really hard to cull it down to 10 books that I would talk about in this particular video. But I hope you enjoyed it. So coming up next, we have my goals video, my goals stay, go, or veto, where I give myself the one opportunity I give myself every year, just one, and it'll be in that video, where I will go through my goals and have the option to veto some goals and potentially will replace them with other goals. So very, very interesting. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and hit the bell to get all those notifications. And if it's not too much to ask, if you could leave a like on this video, it really, really does help the channel, especially with the algorithm. But in the meantime, I'm going to let you all go with peace, blessings, and so much love. Please do be kind and love one another and spread your sparkling energy all throughout the world. And until next time, happy reading. Bye, everyone.